Hello and welcome to Asase, a podcast that honors oral tradition and shines a light on Ghanaian stories that are often untold or silenced. I'm your host, Michelle, and my pronouns are she and her. Greetings, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're having a great week. I am back with another episode of Asase, and I hope you enjoyed the episode, season 4, episode 1. I talked about the Basel mission and its impact on Ghanaian society and everything. It was like, it took a lot of research and, I was giving you history, right? So if you haven't already listened to it, check it out. I also just want to thank everyone who's been supporting Asase, whether it's via donations or by sharing the podcast or engaging on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I see you and I really appreciate the support. And if you want to support, there are two ways to do so. The first way is by sharing on Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, sending these links and stuff to your aunties. Oh man, there's this fly. It's been terrorizing me for the last couple days and it's like annoying me while I'm freaking recording this. It's like on my shoulder right now. Are you my guardian angel? Anyway, yeah, so you can support by sharing. That's one way to do it. So Asaseba is on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at ASASEBAPOD. Yeah, so share the links to the podcast, something resonated with you, share it in your group chat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all appreciated. I love seeing that. And also engaging with the podcast. Is there an episode that resonated with you? Chime in the comments. Yeah, I always love seeing that. It makes me so happy when I see people engaging with the podcast and, showing it love and letting me know what you think about the episodes and all that stuff. So I love seeing that. And another way to support the podcast is through monetary donations. I'm the sole producer, editor, planner, and, making a podcast. It's a lot of labor, effort. I love doing this work, but it does come with all that extra things you need to do. If you want to support me as an indie creator, with this platform, with Asaseba, hosting the website, the podcast, I would really appreciate it. You can donate via email transfer for those in Canada. And if you're outside of Canada, you can donate via PayPal. And the email for that is asasebapod@gmail.com. So that's asasebapod@gmail.com. And that info is in the episode notes. Thank you so much for your support. I see everyone's support. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your donations. Thanks for all of that. Also, don't forget to check out the official Asaseba website at asaseba.com. Yeah, it contains not only podcast episodes and transcripts, it also has resources on queer Ghanaian identities, on traditional religions and spiritualities, as well as cultural work. Plenty of resources, and my goal is to grow them in the future. And I also accept submissions. So if you know any sort of links, accessible links, that would be a great fit for any of the resource pages, feel free to go on asaseba.com and submit them. There's such great resources, and I found, a lot of these links, sources, websites, all of that through just yearning for those things, yearning for information about queer identities, traditional spiritualities, cultural work, and just basically things that inspire me and stuff like that as well. Yeah, this is by and for Ghanaians, and I'm so proud of it. We have so many awesome people that are doing great work. We have videos, we have audio, we have written material. I just basically curated them. These are all such great sources from the minds of various people, and I love it. So yeah, please check that out on asaseba.com. All right, so we have a very special guest today, and I'm so excited about this episode. It's fun, chill vibe, lots of laughs. And it was also very real as well, And for all my queer folks, as a queer person myself, I love connecting with other queer people and just like talking about being queer, being Ghanaian, all of that. So, yeah, this is a great interview. So the special guest today is Omorowa. Omorowa, pronouns she, they, is a fat, black, queer Ghanaian organizer and creative. They're Pisces and enjoy community building, going to concerts, food, and movie marathons. She's always reading and expanding her worldview, especially when it comes to abolition and social justice. The fastest way to your heart is through carrot cake or dedicating your DJ set to them. Oh, I love it. Thank you, Marwa. Great bio. They join us to discuss how they built their queer community, forming communities outside the heteronormative gaze, relationship anarchy, meeting other queer Ghanaians, how queerness expanded her concept of friendship, and much, much more. When you're listening, something resonates with you, join in on the conversation. Use the hashtag asasebapod. And let's get into this conversation. Hi, Amara. Welcome to Asaseba Podcast. Can you introduce yourself?
Hey, Michelle. Hi, everyone. For those listening, my name is Omorowa. I'm a 29-year-old queer Ghanaian woman. Also trying out the whole non-binary LGBT, so we'll see how that goes. It's the first time I've said that publicly. I'm a Pisces, community organizer, and I don't know. Can we see around?
Yeah, you can.
We're all bad, bitch.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about community and community building, and that's something that I've discussed a lot on the show, and my guests that have come on the show have also discussed as well. So first off, I guess you touched on it a little bit, but how do you identify?
Yeah, so lately I've been playing around with the identity of a non-binary woman. My pronouns are she, they. So, I don't know, as I dive more and more into queer identity, it's been something that I've just realized that, like, the rules don't matter. Like, I don't know, it's interesting because gender has been such a huge part of, like, my identity growing up. It's always been associated with my hair too. But like the more I like play around with like how I look and like what I like to wear and things like that, it's just kind of like made me realize that I can do pretty much anything I want. Yes. You know, like I don't know, I'm like currently bald or like partially still growing it out, but like yeah, I've been really enjoying that and yeah.
Nice. I love it. And how has your queerness or identity impacted your connection with the communities that you were raised in or were born into?
Okay, so for me, yeah, I more so with my immediate family rather than my like ethnic communities. Just like I love my parents and my family, but they don't necessarily understand my queerness or how I identify. It raises more questions and like vitriol rather than like acceptance. So in that case, I had to set some like mad boundaries where it's just like, if you are okay with that, like we don't have to talk about it. We don't have to like really go into it. You just kind of have to like recognize that it's a thing that happened.
Yeah.
So like again with like stuff like my hair, I always used to be pretty feminine and like had a giant afro, and like, the routine for that was wild.
I know. Yep.
That wash day, like yes. That was a full like 8-hour situation.
Yeah.
Like it was bananas.
Yeah.
But like stuff like that, where even shaving my hair and subsequently dyeing it blonde, like when my parents, they tend to video call on WhatsApp, like my dad at all hours of the day would just video call me. But he saw my hair and he's like, Moral, what did you do? You know, like, so I don't know, stuff like that always brings into question just like my queerness and like what that means or what that looks like to them. And then I think there have been points in time where I have tried to sit down and have that conversation with them, and unfortunately it doesn't really always go that well. So like my parents recognize and understand that queerness exists. They just believe that it's not a thing that can happen in my family. Like it's a choice that you have to make in order to like live a certain lifestyle, but they don't think it happens innately. In terms of broader community, particularly in the Ghanaian community, I don't know. Hey guys, do you think I'm gay? I don't know. I never really got brought up, to be honest with you. I think I was more closeted when I was younger. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really until I moved away and moved to Guelph that I was really able to kind of like express and like play around with my queerness and my identity or my gender expression in that way. So like if there's anything that was suspected, no one said anything, and that's cool. I don't think they really had to, but yeah, the aunties and I are still cool.
Love that. I love that you mentioned WhatsApp. Like that has our parents, aunties, uncles in a stronghold, in a chokehold, right?
How many family group chats have you been part of that you just like, I gotta do this? No way. I'll never forget the pandemic, like, just some of the propaganda that I got, like,
oh man,
did y'all get the onion in the corner of your room?
Oh, I don't think I got that one.
Oh my god. I don't know why my mom thought that was a thing, but yeah, she saw a video on like TikTok. She got into TikTok.
Oh, wow.
My mom, I love her, but she's not the most tech savvy. So when she was like telling me and sending me TikToks, I was like, how did you access this application? And how did you manage to send it through WhatsApp? Like, that's some high level shit for you. But yeah, no. There's definitely an onion that was in the corner of her room, and like, I don't know who was talking, but they were talking about how the fumes from it would just like fumigate your house.
That's interesting.
Have COVID disappear, and it's like, I don't think that works that way. Science is things.
So, we've touched on community a little bit, but for you, what does community mean?
This is an interesting one. So like, going beyond like the dictionary definition of it, like I definitely think it's like people who kind of coexist and work together and kind of come together in times of need, in times of conflict, in times of celebration and stuff too. So I don't know. I think when I think of community, I think of it in terms of like stuff relative to your identity. So the queer community versus like the Ghanaian community, and like sometimes the overlap of that. So I definitely think that there is some kind of shared identity that comes along with it, rather than it just being location. But like that's also a factor too, is like where you live and like how you're able to communicate. But I mean, with modern technology now, you can make a community from people who are across the globe that are coming together as a based off a singular identity or multiple ones. So yeah, like Black Twitter. Shout out to Black Twitter is an example of what I would say is a community.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like for you personally, what does it mean to build and nurture communities outside a heteronormative gaze? Because you know that heteronormativity is strong in this society, right? Like I feel it. I'm sure you feel it. Other queer people feel it. So what does it mean to you to build community and nurture them outside of that sort of gaze?
Yeah. Okay. So the cishet folks are like at it again. Outside of a heteronormative gaze, it's got to be from a feminist lens. It's gotta be from an anti-capitalist lens. I think a lot of communities that I've been able to be part of really nurture the idea that relationship building and relationships in general can look however they want to look, so long as they are consensual and as long as they work between like one or more people, right? I think we see a lot of the times with like the heteronormative gaze that people want to have like a script, like you're supposed to do A, B, C, date, get married, have kids, buy a house, and do all this stuff. But like in the times that we're living in, that's not always possible, economically and financially speaking. But also, like, has been shown to not actually be the best. Like, people have like very high divorce rates and like under like just general unhappiness. Like, you see that there have been like scientific studies that show that women have a shorter lifespan in comparison to men when they get married.
Yeah,
I've
seen those studies. Yeah.
And so it's like, I feel like being able to develop relationships that work for you and get you what you need should be first and foremost, and like prioritize, and like to hell with like whatever other people have to think about it, you know? Like, I think people are so caught up in the idea of what other people are going to say or what other people are going to do or think about what you're doing. And to be fair, like, that makes sense. We've been taught to and socialized to care what other people think. And to a certain extent, like, safety is an important thing as well, because it's not always safe to do certain things, despite them being consensual and stuff. But, like, yeah, the idea of just, I don't know. I don't really know how to finish that thought.
No, I get it. It's like you have to create your own framework, you know, and it can be challenging, especially if all you've seen is this like heteronormative script.
Yeah.
And especially if people are pushing that on you, it can be hard to kind of create your own structure or framework outside of that. But, you know, I feel like with a lot of living and learning and just doing your own thing, a lot of it is creativity, right? And imagining alternate ways of being and just seeing kind of like what feels good and what feels good in to others in your community, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like for me, it's also like, well, what I would want to receive in terms of care. Like, for me, I love cooking for my friends. It's very known that like I'll make a random meal and like spread it out amongst my folks or have people over for dinner. We come together, we bring people who may not have families or international students who can't go home because it's like a really random holiday. And like we bring people together to like come together and talk and like over food and just like be able to connect and like make new communities in that way. And there's so many different ways you can do that. Like, food is one of my main ways, but you can do it through joining like a club or like knitting or just inviting people out to certain things and going to shows and things like that. Like, there's so many different ways that we can form community and be able to like have it be sustainable too. I think a lot of people also look at these instances as just like one-off or one-time things, but you can really, if you try, you can really develop long-term friendships and people who become very important to you.
Yeah, definitely. And even just you talking about this, I just thought of like even the way that we look at different groups in our lives, like families, friendship, like I know for some people, relationships exist in a hierarchy where, for instance, romantic relationships are like the forefront of their lives.
Yeah.
But, you know, I feel like that's something that living in a heteronormative society has taught us, you know, and just being intentional about like our other relationships, our friendships, you know, and our different community bonds is one way of like building like a sustainable and nurturing community, you know?
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of non-hierarchical relationships. Oftentimes me and my friends, we talk about things called relationship anarchy, where it's the idea that you are kind of like basing your relationships with another person on what works for you. So like if it's something that is a relationship and we're friends, like nothing necessarily sexual or romantic going on, that's still just as important to me as to someone I would consider a partner or a romantic person that's in my life. Like those two can coincide. They don't have to. They can look however they want, but they hold equal importance to me. And that's something that takes a very long time to like come to terms with if it's not something that's like a natural inclination for you. For me, it's something that I always kind of practiced, but didn't really have the terminology for it until much, much later in my life. Because, I mean, I grew up being not necessarily like the dumpy, like fat friend, but like that was a thing that was very hard for me growing up in like a white, like farming town, to really find a lot of like romance and things like that. So not that that's maybe jaded, sorry guys, but it did teach me to really value my friendships and the people that are in my life that are like ready and willing to support me, and I to them, because that's something that really got me through a lot of hard times, right? Like being able to lean on somebody and know that they have my back without me like necessarily having a romantic attachment to them has been really sustaining for me as a person. I really appreciate it, because it's given me a support system outside of folks with romantic attachments. Like if something doesn't work out with, say, a partner and I haven't completely isolated myself. Yes. Like I still have my friends, I still have my family, I still have people I can turn to for connection, for a sense of community. I think that's really important for a lot of people to have, and something that isn't necessarily modeled in heteronormative relationship dynamics, right? Like you often see, and I've often experienced, where someone gets like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and then they're like, okay, I'm
they
gone.
disappear.
Yeah, it's like, see you in 6 months, girl.
Right.
Or it's like you definitely only really like see them when they are going through troubles with their like person. And it's like, oh yeah, like I've been here the entire time, but like that's cool. I'll be your therapist for now. But like you're gonna do it anyway because that's your friend, and like you want them to feel supported in some way, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that like you can have both. Yes, you can absolutely have someone who like you love and care for in that way, and also love and care for in like a friendship kind of way, and like even friendships too. Like for me, you know, being queer has also expanded my concept of friendship. Like I have like one of my best friends who I would consider like my platonic soulmate. Like I would probably like run to the ends of the earth for them, and like we had plans to like move places and like just experience life together. And like I think that's a really beautiful thing to like know that you have a companion and someone who's willing to be there for you and support you throughout life, and it doesn't come with those attachments. I think it's a gorgeous thing when we just like choose to be with somebody.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, they're not brought by family, they're not bought by like blood or anything like that.
Yes,
it's just a human being.
Yes, I love that. So the term that you said is relationship anarchy. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. It's like under the whole polyamory like umbrella. So many different ways of like understanding relationship dynamics. It's, well, for those listening, it's fun. But like it can be really deep, and like some people don't always use the right words and terms, or practice it in ways that are not harmful to other folks. But once you do your own research, you're totally able to define it for yourself. So
yeah, definitely. So being a queer Ghanaian person, have you connected with others that share your cultural identity, and how has the process been for you?
Okay, so as a queer Ghanaian, I won't lie, it's been a bit difficult. I grew up in communities that have had like pretty active Ghanaian associations. So grew up in Winnipeg. I used to like do like cultural dancing and stuff like that. We used to have parties, man. Like it was a good time.
Cute.
And same with Regina too. So I knew my aunties, I knew my uncles, I knew like my play cousins and like kids that I would babysit and stuff like that. But when I moved to Ontario, Guelph in particular, I was really caught up in school, to be honest. So I moved here for grad school, did my master's for like 2.5 years. And like I didn't really do much socializing. To be honest with you, I think I focused more on like the queer community because that was a side of me that I hadn't really been able to explore before. So I found like my queer friends and people pretty quickly. And then it kind of was like, then the pandemic hit. And then I started kind of like thinking about it more. And it wasn't until the Rightify Ghana posted about the LGBTQ bill that I was like, okay, yeah, this is a really messed up thing that's going on. I wonder if there's anything in Ontario being done. And that's when I went to the rally, not one, not two. 2 years ago? Now?
Yeah, I think
September, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a time where I really was kind of exploring that because my friend at the time was also kind of like diving into the intersection between their ethnic and cultural identity and their queerness, and like I started like seeking out people who were part of both, and found a group of people that were able to like kind of connect with. And so it's like, man, I want that too. I want Ghanaians who like are queer, who relate to me when like through whatever struggles, but also through like cultural aspects too, right? So yeah, it honestly wasn't until fairly recently, and it took a little bit of prompting, but I haven't really been able to find much Ghanaian community since.
I know like it just takes time, you know, a lot of these things like building communities and stuff like that. It comes, you know, when you're least expecting it a lot of the times, which, you know, sometimes it can be frustrating when you just feel like, wow, like I really want to connect with people and I just really want to form this community, but why isn't this happening? But it comes eventually, right? So
with health being where it is, it's a very student heavy organization too. So like students kind of come in and out. So for me, with my big age, hanging out with university students, while great, but like don't always want to do that. But it's also through these organizations that I have been able to make some really cool like African connections.
You talked about moving, right? You're from Saskatchewan originally, right? And then you moved to Ontario to go to university. So how did you go about building communities and maintaining them? I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but for people that just aren't sure how to do that, especially, you know, they're queer and, you know, maybe their family don't really mess with them like that, or like they're not really accepting. How do you go about like making these intentional communities and maintaining them?
That's a great question. I think growing up wise, I don't know, I feel like gays just kind of like flock together, you know? So like looking back on like high school photos and things like that, and like, oh, you guys are all gay now. Like you're all getting married, or like you all have your relationships and stuff. Like I kid you not, like 9 out of 10 of the people that like I used to hang out with, I'm like, oh yeah, you're very, very gay. But I like, again, growing up, it was a lot of like sneaking around, and like when I got to like the bar age, I was still also in a pretty like heteronormative like way of life. Oh, straight people clubbing is so hard. I promise you, it's not fun. But I did what I could.
I'm like, is that why I've always felt like bored in the club?
Yes, that is exactly why. That is exactly why.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not feeling this. Like, and I go to a queer club and I'm like, oh my god, I love it.
That and then white people music. Like,
yeah.
I need somebody to lean on. I kid you not. It's not. Yeah, it's not great. But I would have to say that when I moved. And I was like a kind of a free bird. Like my parents weren't watching me. Like they weren't like sitting on the couch waiting for me to get home or anything like that. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can really do whatever I want. So I just started to go to everything that I possibly could. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't even know how I did it because like when you met me, I think I was also still coming out of my own shell. So I was like, more social.
Really? What do you mean? Because you're so... What? Because you're so like outgoing and bubbly and you like talk to everyone and everyone knows you. So I'm really surprised that you're saying that.
I don't know how to describe that. I was like a shy ass person. I was just like sitting there.
Wow. Like... I'm shocked right now.
I went to things and I don't know, I just started with things that I like doing and then just added like queer to it. So it's like, I really want to join a book club. Is there a queer one around? And so I did. And then I started like meeting people through that. And like doing small things, like going on coffee, like hangouts and like, I don't know, work times and things like that with people. And then also being able to get to know people through just like in the local area, like being able to live in a downtown, like busy core has also really helped. So you can like go off to do things, meet other people, go to markets, go to shows, go to like, I don't know, the cinema and stuff like that. So, that's been primarily my main way of like meeting people, just going out and doing stuff. Yeah, because like queer communities are large, but they're not that large. So like you start to see the same familiar faces.
Everyone knows each other. Yeah.
The L word wasn't lying. When you have that like little like chart of just like all the people that you've like seen or hooked up with or whatever, it's easy. Yeah. There's like 2 degrees of separation, honestly.
And like, folks. What if you live at home with your parents? You know?
Yeah. If they're not necessarily watching over your shoulder, like I love my parents, but they also let me get away with a lot. I used to like sneak out where I was like telling my like parents that I was like going to like a friend's house, but then maybe going to like pit parties and stuff like that. But like I don't know, I honestly can't relate to like stricter parents.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, but I know some people who have been able to like figure it out. Reading and like consuming queer like cultural things has been really helpful for some folks that I know. And just like finding a community, especially online if you're able to, has been really helpful because that's how you get to make friends and like kind of connect with people who have similar experiences, and you might be able to find good support there as well. So that would, I guess, would be my advice.
Yeah, I think definitely forming communities online definitely helps. You know, are there any last words that you want to share? Any, you know, words of wisdom? Anything that we talked about that you want to like give some extra?
Yeah, totally. So community is everything, folks. I've always said that, and like being able to build it as much as you can from the right like ethos is really important. So when you're doing so, think about what you value and find people who are similar in those values that you can kind of connect with and grow with as well. I think in tandem with other people, being able to kind of like develop and like understand who you are as a person is really, really important. and also remembered that a lot of great communities and great practices have always come from people who are marginalized. So you've always seen it come from the queer community, people who experience disabilities, people who, like Black people, Indigenous people, folks who, have all of these identities and intersections in their lives, have been doing this and have been creating things that we should be modeling instead of this capitalist society that we live in. So just know that there's more out there. Know that you can create something that works for you and works for other people. And to hell with this like shit society we live in. Like you gotta, the times are coming where you gotta like do stuff for yourself and be able to rely on one another instead of the state. So
yep, exactly. And I think, sometimes people are hesitant to come out to their parents or their family members because they feel like they will lose that access to the community, whether it be like the Ghanaian community, or, lose that kind of cultural community that they have. So I think this really helps because then people know that, there are ways that I can form communities outside of the one I was born into, especially if they don't accept me for who I am, So I don't have to just be in a space where I am like fearful or I feel uncomfortable, because I know that there's a way to create an intentional community that I can lean on,
And that's a very real and very valid fear. And I do want to iterate to people that losing your family, especially from a cultural standpoint, is a hard thing to do. So I am not faulting a single person who doesn't want to take that leap and like go to that. I'm coming to a point with my own parents where we don't talk about my sexuality or my identity. Like, they don't accept it, but I'm also not looking for that understanding either. Like, I'm fortunately in a place where I can support myself and do what I need to do to survive. And my parents have a kind of like further grasp or distal sense of like control over that. So for me, I'm lucky, but for others it may not be. And it's totally okay to want to still have people like that in your lives. But I do want to say that there's more out there for you. So there's always a way to balance both if you can. I wish everyone the best, because I know it's not an easy situation to be in.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Omorowa.
Oh, this is so much fun. It's very rare that I'm the person being interviewed rather than interviewing. So I hope I did okay as a guest.
You did amazing. And if people want to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
Oh man. So, okay. I still have my Instagram on private because I post a lot of unhinged tweets. But I think I have an Instagram that I need to be using more. So now that this is going public, knock on wood, follow o.makeshit on Instagram. Just because I'm hoping to do some more art, some more writing, and just sharing that with the world. So yeah.
Nice, love it. And that will be in the episode notes.
Awesome.
Thank you
so much, Michelle. This is awesome.
No problem. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Wasn't it awesome? Don't forget to share, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the platforms, we're on there. I'm pretty sure we're on everything, guys. So subscribe. That's my Valley Girl voice. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I will catch you in 2 weeks. And don't forget to follow Asase on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram at ASASEBAPOD, and join in on the conversation. and see you next time. Bye-bye.